Despite becoming the most commonly found drivetrain in today's traffic due to cost and ease of manufacture, front-wheel drive cars are the most derided in the enthusiast space. Though there are exceptions, there are general characteristics that most front-wheel drive cars share. Most notably, it's the primary drivetrain found in today's economy cars, most famously the Civic, Corolla, and Volkswagen Golf. These cars are known for their budget-minded simplicity, reliability, and as demonstrated by Sir Alec Issigonis' Mini design, the absence of extra drivetrain components and a small 4-cylinder engine gave consumers a practical amount of interior space in a compact package. Unfortunately, despite the efforts of hopped-up versions of econoboxes such as the famous GTI, Civic Si, and Focus ST, performance isn't really synonymous with front-wheel drive as it is with rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. However, the main thing we're discussing here is looks, and the looks of a front-wheel drive car is rather universal. Typically a compact car with a relatively short wheelbase and an average center of gravity, usually coming in coupe, sedan, and most notably hatchback body styles. Short wheelbases make them nimble, however be cautious, because non-performance base trim models do carry some safety risk if you try to corner them too harshly, driving home the fact that front-wheel drive isn't really synonymous with performance. Rear-wheel drive cars have been the norm for decades before the gas crisis, and have the simple layout of engine to transmission to drive shaft to differential to wheels. Pretty straightforward and simple to work on, hence why rear-wheel drive is still the norm for basic work trucks. In the realm of cars, rear-wheel drive is now only seen in sports cars and luxury cars, with cars like the 2010 Crown Victoria becoming one of the very last average cars with the rear-wheel drive layout. A typical front-engine rear-wheel drive sports car generally employ a lowered center of gravity, long hood line, and in many cases, somewhat of a long wheelbase, although the most successful sports car, the Mazda MX-5, makes do with its famously short wheelbase inspired by the equally small British sports cars of the 60s and 70s. With these two profiles in mind, we can generally tell apart front-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive cars. Here's a test. Rather easy to tell apart for the most part, isn't it? However, look at the silhouette. You will think that this silhouette represents an average front-engine rear-wheel drive car. Long hood line, low slung styling, raked windshield, and somewhat of a long wheelbase. But there are some vehicles which have fit this design perfectly, and for some reason or other have remained front-wheel drive. With that being said, these are the cars we cannot believe are not rear-wheel drive. Starting off with the younger cousin of the 3000 GT, the third generation Eclipse was in my opinion the sportiest looking out of all the generations. But as we all know, it's the most lackluster, as it pales in comparison to the first and second generation DSM Eclipses, considered legends in the tuning scene. Those cars could be ordered with a strong 4G63 turbo, complete with all-wheel drive, and with proper tuning, have surprised veteran V8s in the drag strip. The top trim third generation Eclipse loses the turbo, the all-wheel drive, and gained more weight. It too had 200 horsepower, but done through a very lazy and heavy 3-liter V6. But looking at the car as well as its brother, the Dodge Stratus RT, had that V6 been longitudinally mounted, it would have made a pretty cool drifting machine with the star roll in Tokyo Drift, instead of the laughingstock it was in Too Fast, Too Furious. Next up, we have something that looked like it would have made the perfect muscle car, the 6th generation Monte Carlo of the 2000s. The Monte Carlo name was revived with the 5th generation during the 95 model year, but to the dismay of many, ditched the rear-wheel drive layout it had for so long, especially during its 80s G-body incarnation. What's cool was that the 6th gen Monte Carlos borrowed a lot of styling cues from NASCAR stock cars of the time, and the Monte Carlos on the street looked like spitting images of their NASCAR counterparts. But the similarities end there, as where Jeff Gordon could perform victory donuts with his 04 Monte Carlo, you cannot do the same with the one you bought from the dealership. Would be nice considering they had both a supercharged 3800 Series 2 V6 and even an LS modified for front-wheel drive, the LS4. If you have one of these cars, you could probably try to do it for Dale, but you'll probably need food trays for the rear tires. I'm not going to be too harsh on this one because it was one of Hyundai's early forays in selling a sporty car to those in the tuner scene, an attempt they tried earlier with a car known as the Scoop. The car did sell well, even with that hideous 99 model year facelift. The second generation cleaned up the look and brought in the 2.7 liter Delta V6, but of course it remained front wheel drive. And what's hilarious is that this engine cover of the V6 looks like this. Longitudinal. I'm sorry Hyundai, but you're just not fooling anyone with that. Luckily, Hyundai learned what they could from the Tiburon and eventually gave us the Genesis Coupe, a true rear-wheel drive sports car. Now, the Prelude nameplate is one of Honda's classics, made to compete with the popularity of the Toyota Celica. Where the Celica was sold in rear-wheel drive, the Prelude has always remained front-wheel drive throughout its generations. Fair, I guess. And even though it implemented cool tech over the years, such as four-wheel steering, its front-wheel drive layout started to make less sense, especially when it became longer and heavier. In the 90s, there were several sporty front-wheel drive offerings by Honda: the Civic Si Coupe and hatch, the Del Sol, the Integra, the Accord Coupe, and finally the Prelude. I know that being at the forefront of front-wheel drive performance is sort of Honda's thing, but it would be cool if Honda switched things up a bit and made the Prelude rear-wheel drive. But that probably would have ate at the S2000 sales, so I guess it's for the best. Now, I'm gonna be straightforward. I've never seen a Dodge Daytona in the flesh during all my years around cars. Never at a meet, nor a car show, not even at a junkyard. Which is weird to me, hearing that they sold rather successfully throughout the 80s. The Daytona had styling comparable to its contemporaries, the Fox Body Mustang and Porsche 928. The Daytona came with a measly 93 horsepower 2.2 liter engine, but the turbocharged model bumped it up to 142 horsepower, respectable for its time. The larger cousin of this car, the Mitsubishi Starion and Chrysler Conquest, were rear-wheel drive platforms, and I've seen plenty of those, but I've never seen a Dodge Daytona and would like to change that sometime soon. Well, there you have it, cars that should have been rear-wheel drive. It's a shame because all of these cars I mentioned look so sporty and cool, but their reputations were smeared by the fact that they were only sold in front-wheel drive. No one looks at a Tiburon with high regards, and the Prelude, which does get props from Honda fans, is consistently overlooked in favor of other Hondas. Hope I inspired someone to maybe take one of these cars, and begin the arduous process of converting it to rear-wheel drive. Would love to see a rear-wheel drive 3rd gen Eclipse one day. If you do own one of these cars, definitely respect and take care of them for what they are, even if they try to look like something it's not. Are there any extra examples? Let me know in the comments below. And if you like what you see, go ahead and subscribe. And like always, thanks for watching.